Ohio State is gearing up for the final non-conference game against in-state foe Ohio, and we've got the inside scoop on the firepower the Bobcats are bringing to the shoe.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to your Thursday edition of Locked On Buckeyes, which is your daily Ohio State podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, veteran sports talk host, delivering passionate coverage about your Buckeyes. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is here. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now. Joining us for the entirety of today's show is Charlie Fadel. He is the sports editor of The Post. And I wanted to try to get someone on to discuss the Ohio Bobcats. There's a lot of buzz around the team right now, especially after their win last week over West Virginia. So I didn't want to just do my own deep dive into their film and some of the things that I read, but more get someone on the show that covers the team that can give us the nerd notes that we love. Charlie, welcome into the show.
Hey, yeah. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate you having me on, and yeah, I'm excited.
No problem, man. I'm looking forward to having you talk about this team because what we have seen from Ohio over the past couple of weeks, from the game against Rutgers to the win of West Virginia, is there a team that's gained a lot of respect by Ohio State fans where you may think, oh, it's a MAC school. Even if they won the MAC last year, it's still a MAC school. We got this one in the bag. But Ohio has a lot of things that pose threats to some of the power conference teams around the country. What is the story of this team so far this year?
Yeah, so far this year, I mean, they've really have picked up where they haven't missed a beat from last year where they won the MAC title. The end of the year last year, they really, really came on strong and ended up winning, I think it was 7 straight games towards the end of the year. Yeah, and they haven't missed a beat since then. With Parker Navarro back at quarterback, obviously he's the main guy. He's the engine of pretty much everything that Ohio does offensively. He's played just as well as he has last year in these first 2 games against Rutgers, obviously, where they took him to, really late in the fourth quarter, only lost by a field goal. And then obviously the huge win against West Virginia. That was a really, really big win for, the program against a Big 12 school. To have that game at home in Peden was really, really important. But yeah, I mean, they've kept it going from last year for sure, despite the head coaching change. Obviously with Tim Albin leaving to go to Charlotte, offensive coordinator from last year, Brian Smith, was hired, and yeah, he's kept it rolling. So yeah, I think honestly the biggest thing is just that they've kept the momentum from last year going so strong. And obviously Ohio State's a tough opponent, but I think going into MAC play, I think it should keep continuing on.
What was the vibe after that win over West Virginia?
I mean, it was electric. It was a really, really fun game. There was a lot of West Virginia fans in Peden Stadium. Obviously, it's only a 2.5-hour drive from Morgantown, and then Parkersburg, which is a big city in West Virginia, is only about 40 minutes from Athens. So there was a lot of Mountaineer fans there. I would say it was about 60-40 Ohio to West Virginia fans, but it was the Peden Stadium attendance record with over 26,000 people in there. Yeah, it was the largest, most attended game in the history of Ohio football at Peden Stadium. So it was a really electric atmosphere, and for Ohio to win that game was incredible. It really was a huge win. Obviously, to have that many people there hosting a Big 12 opponent, to be able to win like that, it's a statement win for the program, the school, and just everything around that. The vibe was very high. Yeah, in Athens, it was a fun night. It was really fun. Yeah,
I bet it was. I think the night was fun, and I'm part of me believes that the team is riding that momentum and trying to stay up on cloud 9 as long as they can, going into a game with Ohio State where the Buckeyes, they're the number 1 team in the country for a reason. They are very, very strong all over the place. But Parker Navarro is going to try to find some holes in Ohio State's defense and find a weakness or two where other teams haven't been able to. What's the story of Parker Navarro?
He is a very experienced guy. He originally committed to UCF out of high school. He's an Arizona kid. He's from the Tempe area. He committed to UCF out of high school. Didn't see much run there. When he was there, he sat behind Dylan Gabriel when he was there in Gus Malzahn's offense. He transferred to Ohio, I think it would have been 3 or 4 years ago now. He's been around the block in college. He spent a lot of time, at the collegiate level. And the last 2 years, obviously last year was his first year starting. He's really lit it up. The reason he came to Ohio, funny enough, was our head coach now, Brian Smith, was at Hawaii when Navarro was coming out of high school and recruited him then when he was at Hawaii. And when Navarro hit the portal, he recruited him back here to Athens. And that's been a pretty sound investment for Brian Smith and the Bobcats. He is a running guy. He's super dual threat. But this year, despite the 3 interceptions against West Virginia, I do think that he's improved passing the ball. Against Rutgers, he looks really, really sharp in his reads and in his decision-making. And I know he threw the 3 picks in the second half against West Virginia, but I still think that he played a really, really good game. He's able to do so much outside of structure. When things break down, he's able to get out of the pocket and create with his legs. So he's a threat for sure. I think he's one of the best quarterbacks at the Group of 5 level, and he's been proving that so far this year for sure.
One thing that I do every single week before a game is look at the stats. And I do that generally before I go back and watch the game to see how players are playing. But the numbers jump off the screen to me. Just he's 43 of 62, which is a 69% completion percentage, 486 passing yards and 4 touchdowns. The 3 interceptions, they might happen, and I don't really lose sleep over those things. But he's also Ohio's leading rusher. And so you think a quarterback that was doing some things very well by reading the defense, making some really good decisions. He's also the leading rusher for this team, which poses a massive threat because Ohio State has not yet played a team where the quarterback is efficient throwing the ball and also the team's leading rusher.
Yeah, I mean, he's able to do it both. I am a little bit surprised that he's the leading rusher, honestly. Obviously, in college when sacks count towards rushing yards, for a quarterback to put up 1,000 yards like he did last year, that's really, really hard to do. But he's able to do it. He's slippery. He's able to evade tackles. Like, he's a hard guy to bring down despite his smaller frame. He's just not an easy guy to get down. And yeah, like you said, Ohio State really hasn't seen a guy like that. I wonder how it's going to play out on Saturday. Obviously, Ohio State has, different level of athletes than Ohio has seen so far in Rutgers and West Virginia, despite them even being power schools. But no, Parker is able to do a lot for the offense. Like you said, the 3 picks, one of them came on a tip ball. The 2 of them were just tough plays. The one came on like a busted play on a 4th down where he just threw it up. But no, I agree. I think his decision-making's gotten better, and he's able to do a lot. He really is the engine for what Brian Smith wants to do. He's like the perfect quarterback for that offense, and he's able to run it really well.
Who are some of the other weapons on offense for Ohio?
The starting running back is Sia Bangura. He's a guy that is really familiar to Ohio fans. He was here for 2 years before last year. He won MAC Freshman of the Year in 2021. 2022, he had a great year, and then as well as 2023. Last year, he transferred to Minnesota, went to Big Ten country. He didn't see a lot of playing time there, and he hopped in the portal and came back to Athens. He's had a solid start to the year. A lot of the rushing plays have been inside the tackles. There hasn't been a lot of outside zone or anything like that. But he's had a solid start to the year. I think he's going to really continue to keep doing well. And he's been really solid at running back to start the year. The leading receiver this year is Chase Hendricks, and there's no doubt about that. He's a guy that was playing on the outside last year. He was the number 2 receiver. He had about 500 yards, only had 1 touchdown last year as the number 2 guy behind Coleman Owen, who was in the slot. Coleman Owen graduated, and now Chase is the guy in the slot. And that slot receiver position has produced a lot of guys going to the NFL. 2 years ago it was Sam Wiglas. Last year it was Coleman Owen. Now this year's Chase Hendricks, and he's had a really, really hot start to the year. He's had over 100 yards in both games. He had a touchdown last week. He's caught, I think, upwards of maybe like 16 passes so far, about 8 catches a game. He's able to do a lot in that passing attack. He's definitely the number 1 guy and the go-to guy for Parker. But besides him, I think Max Rodarte has had a really good start to the year. He's a guy that came in last year as a transfer. He didn't see much playing time. He was hurt. This year he's healthy, and he's had a really solid start to the year. He's made some really impressive catches, and I think that he's also a guy that's going to keep improving as the year goes on.
From learning about Parker Navarro to some of his weapons on the Bobcats offense, we're going to learn more about the Bobcats offense and defense after the break. This episode is brought to you by DoorDash. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For Ohio State, Julian Sand delivered in a big way, not only against Grambling, but also against Texas. This young man has been better than advertised early in his career. When the pressure was on, Julian Sand came through. No hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, this performance wasn't a fluke. Julian Sand is on a streak. And just like Julian Sand delivered for Ohio State, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. So, Charlie, I have really liked watching, I'm going to butcher his last name, Sia Bengura?
Bangura, yeah.
Bengura, okay. I went back and watched, I think it was a Rutgers game was the last game that I watched, and I like his quickness. I like his burst, and he kind of popped off the screen when I was watching how he's able to get through the line, get to the second level, and then just hit another gear and go. How does his play complement Parker Navarro?
Yeah, I think he does have that second gear, but I think his play complements it well. C is a really, really strong do-it-all back. In the West Virginia game, I think he had 4 catches. He's able to pick up blitzes really well as well. And Parker's a guy that when he runs, like he will break off some big chunks of yardage. He'll get downfield for about 15, 20 yards even. C's a guy, he really, really keeps the pace with the offense. His yards per carry the first 2 games haven't been out of this world, playing against some really tough defensive fronts. But yeah, he's a guy that is able to kind of slow things down a little bit more. He's controlled in his runs. Parker is really all over the place, which is a good thing. He's able to spin out of so much stuff, but CA is controlled. He's north-south. He doesn't get too far outside of where he's supposed to run in his rushing lanes. He's just a really, really solid all-around back. And I think that he is a compliment, much like Anthony Tyus was last year to Parker Navarro. I think he complements him really well, kind of more of a stronger guy, power back, and he's going to, be able to slow down the offense and get consistent gains.
So when I look at the Bobcats defense, I don't see the same production from a year ago, nor do I see the steady hand that Parker Navarro provides for the offense. The defense really was kind of, there were some question marks, and there were some things that I saw that there were holes that not just a team like Ohio State can exploit. There are other teams around the country that can exploit some of the holes in the Bobcat defense. Am I way out of here or way out in left field by saying the Bobcats defense is going to struggle early in MAC play?
No, but I think honestly, that they will start improving. You saw West Virginia, I think they improved a ton from the first week against Rutgers. Rutgers it was 31 points in the first half. That was a tough start for a defense that only brought back 3 guys from last year's team, 3 starters from last year's team. And all those starters were in the secondary. So it was entire new front 6, 4 new guys in the D-line and 2 new starting linebackers. And it was pretty evident week 1 against Rutgers. That Rutgers offense had a lot of experience coming back. They had guys. Ethan Kalimanakis was, their quarterback last year. He played really well in that first game. But even in the second half against Rutgers, you saw the defense kind of adjust and improve and settle in a little bit. They only allowed 3 points to Rutgers in the second half. It was a field goal that ended up being the game winner for Rutgers. And then moving on to last week against West Virginia, they only allowed 10 points to a West Virginia offense that is relatively new. Obviously, it's Rich Rod's first year back in Morgantown. He doesn't necessarily – I don't think he has the guy quarterback just yet. But regardless, I think the defense really, really played well, played a lot better than they did against Rutgers. Both the front 6 was really the thing that impressed me the most. The 4 guys up front were able to get pressure, and the linebackers played really well. Michael Molnar had a great game. He ended up being MAC Defensive Player of the Week for his game against Rutgers. And, I do think, honestly, that they will keep improving into MAC play. The defense was really the strength of the team last year, if I had to pick one. They were incredible. They were really experienced, senior led. That's gone this year. and I think it'll take some time to adjust. But I think as they get into MAC play and as they go on throughout the year, I think that that defense will continue to get good with the returning coordinator and John Hauser, who did a great job last year.
Who are some of the other studs on Ohio's defense?
The two defensive captains are both safeties. Adonis Williams Jr. was a captain last year. He's a guy that is built more like a linebacker. He'll play a little more down in the box. The John Hauser defense has 5 DBs on the field with Jalen Thomason in the nickel. He's had a good start to the year, although he was in a little bit of controversy for his tackle against Shaheem White last week, which ended up taking him out of the game. But he's regardless has had a great start to the year. And then DJ Walker is the other starting safety who has really came on strong from last year. He ended up getting put into a position where he had to start last year as a redshirt freshman after an injury, and he took off. He was second team All-MAC last year. He's now the captain, one of the captains of the defense this year, and he played another really, really good game against West Virginia. There was a drive, midway through the third quarter where the offense was kind of stalling, and it looked like West Virginia was going to be able to tie it, and he ended up having 3 straight tackles on that drive. One of them was a tackle for loss on a third down that kind of just totally halted whatever West Virginia was trying to do. He's a guy that is really, really good. And then on the defensive front, if I had to pick a guy, I would say so far, last weekend, Nehemiah Dukes really impressed me. He's a Youngstown State transfer. He played really, really well. He had a sack and a couple of tackles. Honest Luckman is a guy that came in from an HBCU in Arkansas Pine Bluff. He's had a really strong start to the year at defensive end. There are a lot of guys that don't have a ton of experience, especially in our defense, in the OU defense. But again, as it keeps moving on, I can already see the progression from these guys. So I think it'll continue to get better.
How does Ohio view playing 3 straight power conference teams?
I think they view it as an opportunity to get wins. Truly, you saw against Rutgers, they were not scared at all. They had some real opportunity to win that game. The offense had a drive with a chance to take the lead late in the fourth quarter against Rutgers on the road in New Brunswick against a Big Ten team, and they almost pulled it off. And then obviously last week against West Virginia, they got the win against a team that isn't super experienced, but it's still a Power 5 team in a Big 12 school. So I think that really, for these smaller schools, obviously these are mostly buy games. I think the number is around $2 million that OU will be getting from Ohio State to come play in the shoe. I think my viewpoint was that out of the three non-conference games that are Power 4 games, I thought that the one that we really had to win was West Virginia, with it being at home, and that's what they did. So I really like to see that. But again, I think they view it as an opportunity to get these wins. I don't think that Ohio and the Bobcats are scared at all to play any of these teams. They've had such great success. They've had, I think it's 3 straight 10-win seasons now, something like that. They've been one of the best Group of 5 schools in the country for the last, in recent memory. And I think that the goal, even with Tim Albin leaving, is to keep that going. And so far, I think that the signs are pointing up, and that it will. Playing so hard against Rutgers and then beating West Virginia. We'll see how it turns out at Ohio State. Again, it's a different level of athletes and guys, but still, I think OU views these games as opportunities to get these huge, huge wins. Being at the Group of 5 level against some power conference teams.
We got to know a lot about Ohio on the offense and defense, especially their quarterback that even Ryan Day mentioned a little bit during his presser on Tuesday. Mm-hmm. But we haven't got to hear what Charlie thinks is going to happen in this game on Saturday night. We'll find out next. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same attention to how we craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how we craft every model. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but everyday drives feel like anything but. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. From breathwork to This episode is brought to you by Mazda. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings this same intention to how we craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. This episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Once again, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by using FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. So, Charlie, I normally unveil my score prediction on Friday's show, so I'm not going to let out what I think the score is going to be right now. However, I do think in this game, Ohio State's the better team. That's no like crazy statement. I
Yeah.
do think Parker Navarro and the offense can pose threats that are unlike anything Ohio State has seen so far. Arch Manning, yes, in week one, Grammy's quarterback Tassel was pretty good, but he's no Parker Navarro. And I think his offense is going to pose some different challenges for Ohio State that the Buckeyes will pass. I think they're going to be passed maybe with flying colors, and we'll look back and say a different quarterback, another lower level team that Ohio State is head and shoulders over than. You said Ohio views these games as games they can win, which makes me think they're going to come into this game with a lot of confidence. How confident do you think Ohio will be when they walk into the shoe on Saturday night?
I think the confidence will be as high as it can be for a MAC school to be playing at Ohio State. Beating West Virginia at home, it was such a big deal for that team and this program. I think that, again, I personally don't think that Ohio's going to win, but I don't think that Ohio's going into this game just thinking that they're going to lose. That's not the mindset that has been instilled in the culture over the last couple of years. This is a tough team. Ohio's a really tough team with a lot of good athletes and a lot of good players, and they've proven that over the first two games this year and obviously, of course, last year and the last 2 years. I do think that they'll be pretty confident coming in. I don't know how long that confidence is going to last for. Again, it's just a different thing with Ohio State. It's a different level. They're the number one team in the country for a reason. But for a MAC school that is going to play at Ohio State, I think the confidence level is as high as it can be, to be quite honest, especially being an in-state game. Obviously, it's only an hour up the road, Athens from Columbus. So, yeah, I think that they'll be confident coming into the game for sure.
Do you have a score prediction for the game?
Nothing concrete, but I definitely, like I said, I don't think that Ohio's going to win. Week one against Rutgers, my prediction was 38-21, and I really sold them short. This week, I'll be making probably I'll have a similar prediction, probably something around like 45-10, 45-14. Again, Rutgers is not Ohio State. They're just not. Rutgers is a winnable game for Ohio, obviously, as we saw. And Ohio State is just, one of the best programs in the country. They've proven that over the last 2 years, over their history, really. But, yeah, I don't think that Ohio is really going to be able to have what it takes to knock it off. If they do, that'll be, maybe one of the biggest upsets of all time. And they'll probably be on track with USF to try and make the college football playoff. But we'll see. I don't know. I'm definitely very excited for this game. I'm looking forward to it. It's just going to be, it's going to be a fun one.
I didn't even bring up the college football playoff at all. I thought about it earlier, but I was like, no, let's keep this thing rolling. But losing to West Virginia and Ohio State, losing to Rutgers and Ohio State, those are two games that maybe people on paper thought Ohio was going to lose. Okay, that may be real. But that doesn't mean they can't make the playoff at the end of the year. Do people around Ohio think this team can make the CFP?
Not necessarily. I think if we beat Rutgers and West Virginia, I think there would be a little more hype for
Okay.
sure. Starting 2-0 against 2 Power 5 teams would definitely get some conversations going. My view, being in the MAC, a conference that isn't the strongest, definitely not as strong as the American or the Mountain West. I think if for a MAC school to do it, they would have to go pretty much undefeated. There were some shouts for Toledo to do that, with playing Kentucky in week 1, and then obviously not as tough as a non-conference schedule as Ohio has. But I don't think after losing Kentucky, I don't think they're going to do it. If Ohio has a chance to make it, they would have to pull off, one of the biggest upsets, like I said, in college football history this week. And then they'd have to go undefeated in the MAC. Northern Illinois, they were ranked last year after they beat Notre Dame. And then the next week they lost at home to Buffalo. So college football is a crazy world. Anything can happen, but I right now I don't think that Ohio has the clearest path to this college football playoff. South Florida, obviously starting 2-0 against 2 really good teams, I think is a borderline lock for them to be in that spot, depending on how conference play for them goes. But we'll see. We'll see what happens this weekend. I'll just say that. Yeah.
Last thing for you. Who are 3 players that you think will shine Saturday when Ohio State and Ohio play?
Number 1, I think, is Chase Hendricks. I think that the offense is schemed up to get the slot a ton of looks, no matter who they're playing, no matter what game it is. You saw that last year with Coleman Owen, and so far through this year, it's been Chase Hendricks. He's had a really, really strong start to the year. So I'm going to go with him. And I think that Adonis Williams is going to have to play a big game this weekend. He's more of a box safety. He moves around a lot. He's super versatile. I think that he'll be a really, really important guy on defense for OU this week. And then for my third guy, I mean, it's easy to say Parker, but again, I think I'm going to have to go with him. After coming off of a second half where he threw 3 interceptions and had three turnovers, I think it's important for him to stay upright in this game and just play some good football against a really, really good team. Try not to do too much. Try to stay settled. So, yeah, I would go with those 3 guys.
He is Charlie Fadel. He is the sports editor of The Post, and you can follow him on Twitter at Charlie Fadel. That is Fadel. You can follow me on any social media platform at JSteven07. Guys, it's Thursday, which means we're a couple days away from Ohio State playing Ohio. The Bobcats, the battle for Ohio will be a fun game to watch. I think Ohio State's going to win. I kind of let that out earlier. Come back tomorrow, maybe have another special guest where we will empty the notebook before Ohio State plays Ohio under the lights.